Hello everybody and welcome to FinTech Futures. We are here today on day 2 of FinovateEurope here in London. My name is Tyler Pave. I'm a reporter here for FinTech Futures, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Rory Tanner of Revolut. Rory, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. How are you?
Well, yes, I'm very happy to be here speaking with you today and joining you at this exciting conference here in London. We've got a very interesting conversation lined up for us today. But before we get going, why don't you give our audience just a little bit of a taste of who you are and what your work is at Revolut, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the head of UK Government Affairs and Public Policy. So that's essentially 2 hats that I have. So firstly, I lead our UK engagement with government, Parliament and industry. So looking at all of the government departments, the House of Commons, the House of Lords, and then our trade bodies and organisations such as the City of London. So my job is to basically manage those relationships on behalf of Revolut in the UK. And then the second side is public policies, so looking at future policy, regulation, legislation, and trying to shape that in a way that best supports Revolut's business objectives and also supports growth and competition in the UK.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that element of growth, because Revolut has just come off the back of a really good year, being 2024. It's got its banking license. And more specifically, it unveiled a stellar product vision for 2025. Can you share a little bit more about what we can expect to emerge from that vision this year and into the future? And how will those products advance the bank's international competitiveness beyond the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be a really exciting year, building on what we did in 2024 with eSIMs and various other products. I think in the UK, looking to take full advantage of our UK banking license and offer those sorts of products that we want to offer to customers, so loans, overdrafts, traditional banking services. I think that's a really important part. Looking globally, kind of scaling up our Revolut business product offering is really exciting. We're doing a pilot around car insurance in Ireland at the moment. So again, looking at diversifying away from traditional banking services, and we're actually even exploring areas completely outside of banking, so looking at commercial real estate as an example. So I guess what we're trying to do is diversify not just beyond banking, but beyond payments, beyond everything, because we feel like there's a lot of opportunities out there. And then we do that globally. This is not just a UK-centric thing. We look to build products in specific markets based on regulatory permissions. And then if they work, build them, expand them globally to our 50 million retail customers.
That's really interesting, and it sounds very exciting. It sounds like a very exciting time for Revolut at the moment with those products on the horizon. Very good. Well, Rory, we've caught you today just a few minutes before you're due to attend one of the power panels here, talking about the rise and attitudes towards neobanks within this current landscape, which is going to be very interesting. I have been into the main stage area, and it's very big, and there's a lot of people.
Don't make me nervous.
No, there was no need to be nervous, but it's going to be very exciting for you. So thank you for joining us just before that panel. I just want to pick your brains a little bit, maybe a bit preemptively before you join the stage.
Yes.
What can you tell us about the direction of sort of neobanks globally, and where do you think this direction will lead in the future?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. To me, it seems like there's definitely a consolidation of what we see as the most successful neobanks globally. Really, the media attention is probably aimed at Revolut, Starling, Monzo, Wise as well, but they're technically not a bank in the UK. Then like Nubank in Brazil, right? I probably don't see that kind of second wave of neobank emerging beyond the sort of really big success stories. And I guess because that is, Nubank is a listed company, I think you're looking at all these other fintechs, and that's like now the end destination, and that's always going to be an exciting thing. And I think weirdly, we're starting to see neobanks, including Revolut, almost behave like traditional banks. Like we're looking at the Canary Wharf skyline, you can't quite see, but Revolut's logo is now nestled on a building there. I noted that there was a recent football match, and you had Revolut, Monzo, maybe even Starling doing TV ads on national TV. So in addition to the consolidation, I think you're starting to see there's a big move now to really attract kind of vast waves of customer bases, and probably because it's a little bit of a winner takes all mentality, that if you have one or two of these apps, it's going to be very, very hard to disrupt them and to get a new banking app to emerge. And look, obviously that's good for Revolut and it's good for the others. But I think it's an interesting trend, and there's probably some further consideration about why there hasn't been like a new generation of neobanks, specifically like regulated banking providers that are looking at specifically consumer support.
That is a really interesting take on the current market. I think it really goes to show like, we were just talking about the product vision and the banking license for Revolut, how it's really ready and actively scaling its operations, to join those bigger, more established players in the market. I think it'll be a very interesting 2025 for Revolut. I think it'll be a very promising year for Revolut. And I can't wait for you to share more of that with the panel and the audience in only a few minutes' time. As you mentioned in the beginning, a lot of your work around Revolut is centered around government affairs and public policy.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about, what the key matters or concerns are of Revolut's government affairs team, and how does the bank then take those concerns and engage with regulators and Parliament?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first piece is around awareness. Like, if you think of the House of Commons and the House of Lords, they won't necessarily know the minute details of what makes a fintech tick, what our concerns are, what we want to see happen in terms of regulation or legislation. So there's a really big piece around raising awareness with those policymakers, because ultimately they are responsible for passing legislation that has massive impacts on not just fintech but financial services. So that's the first piece. From our perspective, broadly what we're looking is to ensure that the UK remains at the forefront of financial services innovation globally. I think we've got a really, really good track record over the last sort of 5-10 years of the UK being the gold standard for regulatory innovation. I think open banking is a really good example of that. But we're insisting that we cannot stand still, that we need to keep moving, that the competition is growing fast. It's not just coming from Europe now. You're looking at Latin America, India, even the Middle East, where there's a lot of appetite to move really quickly. And probably the biggest challenge that we have is basically balancing the need for growth, competition, innovation, and not doing it in a way that's proportionate. So yeah, from our position, trying to ensure those objectives are met, making sure that the government objectives of growth and ensuring that the regulators are supporting growth is a really important thing for us. And then looking at specific issues, so open banking in the UK, fraud prevention, so making sure that the UK takes really serious control of the fraud issue in the UK and looks to reduce those numbers via collaboration with telcos and technology companies. Finally, kind of crypto, looking at crypto and then specifically stable coins. If we're looking at long-term alternatives and competitors to card networks, open banking is a really good example, but looking at stable coins, I think is a really underrated part of that. You see in the US now the kind of explosion due to really good lobbying for one, and also because there's political interest, and it's going to be very difficult for the UK and the Europe to keep up with that. And I don't necessarily think that they should be kind of taking the same approach, because it's possibly quite a reckless one. But I think that the UK needs to take technologies such as stablecoins very seriously, and to ensure that we create regulatory frameworks to support those that can protect consumers but also enable growth in the UK specifically, because otherwise we will get left behind.
That is some very interesting points that you've raised there. I really like your angle on sort of stablecoin adoption and the increasing role of the technology in connecting banks with those customers. Taking those sort of core initiatives of the government affairs team, how do you think they will go on to shape public policy and financial policy in the future?
That's a good question. So basically this is all dependent on me doing my job well. So I think if we're looking at the timelines of a Labour government, right, which are going to be up to 2028, I think that in the next year we should be able to see pay by bank, which is a fancy term for commercial variable recurring payments, be launched in the UK. There's a lot of background work going on with industry to deliver that, and I think that that's a public objective. So supporting that is really important. The FCA's crypto roadmap, ensuring that is followed and adhered to based on what I just said about timelines. I think any further delays to that is a challenge. And then delivering open finance, which I think is a really interesting opportunity, not just for Revolut, but for the UK economy. So looking at the principles of open banking and looking at insurance, credit, investments, savings. If we have interoperability of data and transparency of data around these sectors and being able to interconnect them, I think that there's a really good opportunity both for customer outcomes and then growth. Like you look at open banking and how it has created new segments of the UK economy. Look at TrueLayer or Tink and the big important companies that have arisen out of that. And I think that that's how regulation creates growth, right? Create areas of the market for the private sector to grow into proportionately. And yeah, I think that that's the real key. And I know for a fact that, the regulators are under a lot of pressure to deliver that, because you see the rhetoric of this Labour government that growth via regulator action is like essentially the theme of this, especially this Treasury and this government. And, from Revolut's perspective, we stand ready to support this government and to support the regulators to achieve that.
That is really, really exciting. What a fantastic conversation this has been, Rory. I could really speak to you all day on these matters. It's been really fascinating, but I understand now you must leave us to go and attend.
I've got to go do this all again and just replicate what I said. So.
Well, thank you very much, Rory Tanner, of Revolut, for joining us here today at FinovateEurope. If you would like to find out more about this year's event here in London, then our coverage will be up on FinTechFutures.com. Otherwise, I've been your host, Tyler Pate, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.